moves. Cardi B will maybe have to ask us to not use that term. But we'll get into it. WWE's quarter financials have come out. We have AEW NXT ratings, and they are just all over the place. If you thought they weren't erratic before, they're even more erratic now. If you're joining us on Facebook, really cool. Give it a like. Give it a share. If you're on YouTube for the first time, give it a like. Give it a share. Go with the channel. All that good stuff. And if you're with us on the podcast side of things, thank you so much. A huge increase in listeners in the past month. We really, really appreciate that. Please give us a review on whatever podcast app you're on. I am Kevin Kelm. I am not alone. First time co-host with us on the show for the first time. We have not had him on, but he and I know each other from the world of comedy. You can follow his work at GameSpot.com. And of course, check out the podcast, Wrestle Buddies, not Wrestling Buddies. They cannot be sued. No. They did not say Wrestling Buddies. You can purchase a Wrestling Buddy. You can find the collector's items. I believe some of them are called Rumble Buddies now. All right. Yes, so Rumble all those Buddies. Different things. Yes. Yes. Rumble Boys. Yes. We know a couple of Rumble Boys. All those things. So yes, we are not getting into any different type of legal ramifications here. But I do want to join you guys and get into all the different news. His name is Matt Elfring. You can check him out on that podcast, Wrestle Buddies, with Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson on the most recent episodes. They've been doing the real media rounds. They were on with us.
I think they did 4,000 interviews this week. That's what it
yes, like. They did a lot of interviews. Yeah. If you're with us, we will talk about WWE big money moves with them. And I keep bringing that up, but there has been a lot of money moves that they've made in the last few months, and finding out the quarter financial information really gives you an indication of what the company's going to be doing going into the future and how they're adjusting with COVID-19. We do have these AEW NXT ratings, and the ratings are so important. They are the most important numbers, Matt. As you know, these are the most indicative overnight ratings that are only indicative of less than 1 million people watching a show, maybe watching a show, and it's really just 10% of the actual audience that could be watching the show. But this is an indication of so many things. They are important numbers, I will say that. But I think they're the most important to people that want to argue. What?
The ratings numbers are a C-list CW show. They're not important.
In comparison, they're important to people that want to argue with each other on the internet. How about that?
I guess for that.
Yeah. So we'll get into those AEW NXT ratings in just a second and all the fun stuff here. But yeah, your podcast, quite the fun interview with Carl Anderson and Gallows.
Thank you, right? Thank you. We basically just talked about Talking Shop-A-Mania, their pay-per-view that's coming out this Saturday. Ooh. And
that is appointment viewing for me. After watching that trailer, that is appointment viewing.
It is right up my alley. It's just silliness, and that's all I want. I just want wrestling to be silly and fun, like our show is. And so it just speaks to me, my type of, wrestling fan who likes seeing RoboCop and Sting in a cage,
And there should be more comedy wrestling shows like this. WWE dipped their toes into this in the last few years, just of doing a flat out comedy like side project with Southpaw Regional Wrestling. Yeah. I was maybe one of a few dozen fans that wanted to see WWE do a Southpaw Regional Wrestling live show.
I'm there with you.
You may have heard this. There were rumblings of WWE doing some type of midnight wrestling show during a WrestleMania week to compete with all the different side shows that pop up. And someone said it. I don't believe it's a true thing. I think it's purely a rumor, but a fun rumor to think of, right? To think that WWE would be like, WWE would be like, hey guys, you want to go do all your side characters and wrestle in a gymnasium? you can go ahead and go. You
want to be goofy in a Brooklyn nightclub at 2 a.m.
Just don't break your legs. Just have fun out there.
Keep it safe.
Keep it safe. All right, so let's get into the AEW NXT ratings. Did you say you don't think they're a big deal, but a lot of people do, and I put on my media hat and I try to look at the numbers as what they are. Kind of surprising numbers here. AEW still has an advantage. They're over there, but not distinctive. It's really erratic. They really whooped them last week, right? It was, at one point, it is believed that AEW cracked 1 million. within like maybe a quarter segment they did that. But the overall average rating dropped down to 854. That was the number. And they beat WWE NXT for the first time in 3 weeks. WWE had that overall rating, but they've always had the demographic number, which everyone says is the most important thing. Chris Jericho worked it into an angle. They listened to the internet. It's such an important thing for them to listen to the internet a lot. Now these numbers come in and they settle into sort of a different lane. WWE is once again kind of closing the gap on them. AEW was number 6 on the night in cable, not in broadcast television overnight overall, which is a pretty good ranking number, but they're still getting beaten out by a bunch of different cable shows. AEW wins the night. They had 773,000 viewers overall, which was down from 845,000. NXT is up from last week with 707,000, and that's a huge rebound. That's a big rebound from 615 the week before. So that is significant. They also got within 12 points of AEW's demographic number. AEW was a 0.30, whereas WWE was a 0.18. So that's a significant number. Overall, these numbers are kind of lining up with kind of what we thought would happen after last week, but they're within 100,000 again.
I mean, we also have to keep in mind that we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
Watching week to week for some people isn't as much of a necessary thing as that would be if, the world was real right now.
Mm-hmm.
And also the ratings war thing to me is just such a silly, dumb thing. I'm glad we have 2 different shows of wrestling to watch, and one isn't a WWE product. There's variety. I don't care about a wrestling. So I lived through the 90s. I lived through the Monday Night Raw war.
That was a much bigger ratings war too, by the way.
Huge.
Yeah, it was a much bigger ratings war. This is more of like a turf battle, than it is than a ratings war.
It's the Jets and the Cobras. That's what it is.
Yes. But a little bit nastier though too, in terms of you see the tricks are just out there. Back then we didn't have the internet. There wasn't this social media factor to drive through it, but you see the tricks being done with picture in picture during commercial. We're going to have the main event with no commercial interruption. This we're going to have just one main presenting sponsor for half the show. And you saw WWE do that with kind of the Great American Bash, and you're going to do Fyter Fest. We're going to do a TV, and everyone's like, oh, well, WWE shouldn't even be on Wednesdays. I've heard people say, I was like, are you serious? This is a huge company that put millions of dollars in there and said, we're going to be the alternative. We're going to change wrestling. And I've been criticized quite a bit for this, but people are always like, why isn't WWE just taking a knee and getting off Wednesdays? And I was like, this hasn't even gone on a year. And we have a pandemic, which has changed media consumption. You know this from just being online. It has changed the way people consume media completely. There used to be this framework where we could say, all right, here's when we think we get press releases, and here's when we think we're going to get this. And Fridays is when you get like kind of bad press news because they think it'll get buried in the weekend pattern. There is no pattern anymore.
Nope,
there is no more pattern. And also another thing that isn't reflective of this, and this would show if you're an AEW fan, the show probably has a lot more viewers than you think, because you only get publicly reported, unless you're with a big advertising firm, you only get the overnight ratings. Those are the only ones that we can find accessibly.
You're not getting those DVR ratings. You're not getting the 3-day after ratings through streaming services.
No, and we're not getting a WWE Network number on NXT either. We're not seeing what that number is. Even though they're a publicly traded company, that isn't a number they have to report. They have to report on the subscribers. We'll talk about the current subscribers, by the way. But overall, this is a lot more competitive than people think. I'll say that. It's doable in the sense of AEW, I think, is winning because it's not a WWE show and it's wrestling and it looks big time, and it doesn't look like a cheap independent wrestling show. It looks like a big time wrestling show, and it's accessible. A lot of people have TNT. Like if you have a cable package, you likely have TNT, and it proves to be, wrestling has proven to be a demographic winner. Live sports is something people like. Advertisers find more value in it than they did 5 or 10 years ago. And that's why this is working. More people found value in this audience because they feel, all right, we're going to get between 500,000 and 1 million people to watch a show live every week. Well, that's a bankable show. That audience, even though smaller, is worth more because everyone's spread out more. There's so many more options to be
and I feel like when we look at that, when we look at the Wednesday Night Wars, AEW and NXT are 2 very, very different products. Yes, they are showcasing more higher level that once were indie talent, but I really do feel like AEW is putting on more of a spectacle type show, while NXT is more focused strictly on just kind of indie wrestling. I know you shouldn't be calling NXT indie by any means, but I feel like I'm, out at Logan Square watching a show when I watch NXT.
Yeah.
While AEW feels much more like a ready for TV type show.
And so I think part of that, especially the past few months, has been the aesthetics. Like, I think AEW kind of just got an ace in the deck dealt to them in the pandemic, in the sense of having Daily's Place and having a circumstantial venue that can make it look big. And there's been some talk of WWE starting to see that pattern settle in, that people are tired of watching Raw, SmackDown, even though I think, NXT isn't even filmed at the Performance Center. It's filmed at Full Sail University, and they have that Full Sail arena. But it looks the same, and it feels the same. They have the hockey boards up, and it has all the different same things. We will talk about the latest that we've heard of WWE SummerSlam being wacky in its presentation and location. We'll talk about that within the show. But if you're WWE, you're in this for the long haul. We see the bets that were made, and we did the post show. If you haven't listened to it yet, Robert DeFelice and I had a lot of fun. That is available now in the podcast feed. We did an hour-long show, kind of breaking down both AEW and Dynamite in both shows. I thought AEW had some fun, surprising things with Matt Cardona, formerly Zack Ryder, Arian Andrews, formerly Cameron, showing up on the show. Some big matches, some fun angles, some wild things. Some matches that some fans, I think, reading today, were less impressed with. And then NXT, though, made some big bets, though. They really put the spotlight on less established names for, I think, a longer payoff. Dexter Lumis beat Finn Balor and Timothy Thatcher in a main event with a sleeper.
Yeah. And I would even say that they, opening up that show with that women's tag team match, which is an amazing match. But really, I feel like NXT is doing really, really well with the women's division. Those 4 women are some of the strongest in that company right now, aside from Rhea Ripley, obviously.
Other people chiming in here. We have Kusam texting in saying, this is true. Is there even a feud on this show? There's plenty of feuds, guys. Don't worry about that. Rolf Fuentes texting, it seems like AEW offers fresh matches and feuds. I think with AEW, the appeal in general, like the number one appealing thing about it, and we just already touched on this a few minutes ago, is it isn't WWE, but it has WWE budget and feel. Like, in terms of it looks big time. Everything about it is supposed to look big time. And then it's always constantly flipping its nose at WWE. Like, people love
that it's new. It's a new product. People are excited for a new product because we haven't, aside from Impact, and Impact's gone through a lot of changes, but aside from when WCW ended, back in 2001 to, I don't remember exactly, 2002, we haven't had like a major new promotion to watch. So that's kind of great, and that's exciting to a lot of people. That's why a lot of people are watching, because it's something new and fresh to kind of put in their eye sockets.
Eye sockets, literally, it goes into your brain. Zaps right in. We have a chip now. You don't even look at the screen. It just goes beams right to the chip in your brain. I believe Elon Musk wanted people to get that now. He wants them to get a chip in their brain.
Only bald guys with beards that are wrestling fans get that. So that's only 7 million wrestling fans.
I'm late 30 chic with my look right now. That's what I am. New viewers, if you guys are watching the show, shout out where you guys are watching from. I see a bunch of new faces kind of pop into the chat here. That's pretty cool. So I do think the shows are fun. I'm excited about where both of them are going. I know some people say I'm critical. The thing is, on Wednesdays I watch NXT, and I'll always have my co-host watch AEW, and that's just kind of been the pattern. Just because there's been some weeks where I think I flip-flopped one or two, but I've watched AEW Dynamite today. I kind of know everything that happened, obviously, because I'm covering it, and I thought they did a good job. I did think the opening tag match this week was kind of all over the place a little bit, and you want those matches. That is a fun thing that people like about AEW, is the multi-man matches where just everything's going out all around the place. But Jim Ross was losing his mind during this match. His traditional wrestling curmudgeon thing that some fans don't like him having on commentary was there, very, very present.
How many times did he mention, like, who's the legal man, and like, why isn't the referee breaking this up?
Yeah,
it was every 3 seconds.
And the thing is, there is some truth to that, because and mind you, I could have watched it with the sound off, and I would have been like, who's like, where what is this like? There was a lot of confusion with that.
Mhm.
And it is a major thing with it, but there were so many fun things on the show. I did
Yeah.
think the surprise setups, I did think the announcement of the women's tag team tournament and keeping most of it not on Dynamite is an interesting thing. Though I see some of those female fans that want to see the women be up front in the business. You know, they want to see that fulfilled. They want all that women's evolution stuff to be present now. May not feel validated if most of this tournament is just on YouTube. I don't think they're going to be that. I could see some backlash from that, but I can tell you the Cameron has her fans. Arian Andrews has her fans, and a lot of people were very critical. For hardcore male wrestling fans, were like, "Why are you doing this? Why is this someone you're bringing over? She already had bad matches in WWE that are on television. You already saw it." And then other people have noted that she has been training a lot recently, returning to wrestling after several years of being out of the business and working in the fitness media world, and was going to do Effie's Big Gay Brunch WrestleMania weekend. Now, obviously, WrestleMania weekend didn't happen. She was training for an in-ring return, and now she's going to be a part of this tournament. I can tell you that the traffic for that announcement that we put on WrestleZone's Twitter feed was 4 times the news of Matt Cardona, aka Zack Ryder, showing up on AEW. 4 times more interest in a former Total Divia cast member showing up on the show than a guy that a lot of fans online certainly care about, Zack Ryder. He very much has an internet-driven audience, and he was a guy, one of those guys 10 years ago that really embraced online media and all those different things. I was very, very surprised by that.
Well, I think
so.
Everybody knew Cardona was going to AEW. I think that was
it was almost a foregone conclusion.
And
it was just a matter of when.
Cameron, like we haven't seen Cameron in wrestling at all since the Funkadactyls, and she's been gone. So that's quite a surprise. And you know what? Like I'm excited for her. Like she wants to join. She wants to get back into the wrestling ring. Like let her go. Like hopefully she's gotten a lot better. Maybe she has. She's working hard, probably. Positivity.
Big fan of the show. James Espanto Fernando Tagoal says multiple men matches are good for the wrestlers, helps lessen the wear and the tear on the body. Yes, Chris Jericho was a part of that. I was noting that on last night's post show. I like that they're not feeling the need to put everyone in there and beat the crap out of each other one-on-one. There is some fun to that too. I don't deny that. And people said wait until next week with the 10-person tag team match. Yes, there'll be a 10-person tag team match.
I'll watch it.
Yeah, you're feeling it here. In terms of the AEW NXT skirmish that we're getting here, is it not a war? It's a rating skirmish. Stephen Billy Scooter Robinson. Now that's a hell of a name, Stephen Billy Scooter Robinson.
I like this guy already.
I just love the name. He's got just such a great name. Not everyone wants to see WWE die. Just AEW fanboys. They are way smaller than the WWE universe. Remember, the WWE is worldwide with television contracts and performance centers around the world. They do more to keep the business alive than people give credit for. They are the only reason wrestling is mainstream today. Some truth in that statement. But certainly there's a lot of tiffs and fights between people online. You've seen this over on GameSpot. I've certainly seen it here on WrestleZone. The people feeling like they have to take a side on this thing is just astounding to me. I don't understand why people have to. I've been criticized. You know, the critical thing of me, Matt, is that I am horny for WWE. I've been told that I am horny for them. I am physically, sexually aroused by anything coming out of the Stanford office. I'm
not going to king shame you, Kevin.
Don't king shame me. Don't do it.
I am very happy there are multiple mid-level and a major promotion to watch. I mean, when I kind of fell out of wrestling after the Attitude Era, it's because it was just WWE left, and there was nothing else to watch. I like to jump around. I like to see who's doing what. And if there's not, is there just a front-ending big whopping appeal to you that it's not WWE? I think for a lot of people, it's accessible. They know where it is, and if they have to choose between a WWE show and a non-WWE show, they just want to go with the WWE show, the non-WWE show. I mean, I grew up with WWE,
appeal.
So I'm always going to watch WWE, but I also get excited that, other people are trying to make their own mark on wrestling. The more wrestling, the better to me.
Yeah, exactly. So this one coming in, people really want to see AEW succeed. Hence, they give priority to Dynamite. That's true. That being said, NXT is definitely the better wrestling show. I've heard a lot of people say that week to week sometimes that they think NXT has better matches, but they enjoy maybe the sizzle of AEW a little bit more. I could see that too.
I think NXT had the better matches this week, but I liked the AEW. I liked MJF a lot, his whole speech. So like that's the part of wrestling that appeals to me. but not every aspect of wrestling appeals to everybody. I like the comedy and goofy stuff.
It is odd to me that AEW present itself as we're going to be sports based. We're going to be professional wrestling.
Mhm.
We're going to give you matches with we're not going to do all these different things. We're not going to give you sports entertainment. We're professional wrestling, which has been a big thing for hardcore fans for a long, long time. They don't like that term. They don't like the term sports entertainment. They like sports entertainment. They just don't like the term sports entertainment.
Yes.
And terminology, very important to wrestling fans, just like it is to like Star Wars fans, video game fans, and all that stuff. I'm not a noob. Don't call me a noob. I'm not a noob. All those fun things. But the thing is, I see AEW doing more gaga, for lack of a better phrase, more sports entertainment, more attitude era-esque type things, short of sexualizing characters, on their TV show than NXT does. Whereas NXT is very much like men and women fighting for championships who have characters and big extravagant entrances as much as we can do them with a karrion cross. NXT comes off as more of a streamlined, less fat, straight steak, straight grilled meat version of Raw and SmackDown, whereas AEW is we're a deep fried chicken wing with a ton of spices on it, and we're gonna give you as much flavor as we can from all of this. Whereas NXT is like, this is it, salt and pepper.
Yes.
You know what you're getting. And I do think there is a lane sometimes where NXT is playing long game, whereas AEW, I do think they're playing a long game, but their long game is 3 months from now. I think NXT's long game is a year and a half, 2 years from now. And with the amount of money they put in the Performance Center and NXT in general, I kind of see that too. Other people, I love this comment here. This one from Javon JB Brewster. The names from people texting in today, Matt. I love these names.
Your fans are dynamite with their names. No pun intended.
Even if these are just handles, you know what I mean?
I love them still.
Yeah, Javon Amantboy JB Brewster. That's a name, dude. You can come on. Imagine if he had to sign it, he had to do autographs. He would just get tired. His wrist would fall off.
He's gonna serve me a cocktail at a casino, and we're gonna hang out together.
You're gonna have him blow on the dice and throw it.
Oh, he's a good luck charm.
Yeah. He goes, I'm 38, been watching wrestling my whole life. I love all brands. He watches all of it. Even NXT if it's not enough. All right. So he has this different take there on the things here. So this is where we're at here. Let's get into WWE money news. WWE announced their second quarter financials. Did they lose money? Yes, they lost money. I think a lot of major media companies lost money. Their revenue is down by about $42 million in terms of comparisons to previous quarters and different things they're doing. I'm just seeing over my shoulder how nasty my room looks today. But I'm going to get in trouble with the internet people here. This big money moves, though, made in terms of shoring up merchandise deals. So all the money they would have lost on live events, apparently, they made back on merchandise. They have been pushing a lot more merchandise promos on all of their different TV shows, a lot more flash sales and different things like that. And apparently that's been able to kind of shore up the loss of 76 live events. It's a lot of live events, including the very, very sought after and very, very profitable Saudi Arabia event. They may have had one of those during this quarter. And sometimes we don't know about those events until like a month beforehand, for sure.
There's still rumors that they're planning it.
And that's a long plane trip. That's a long plane trip, especially. And that was a long plane trip to begin with. I think it's an even longer one now with COVID-19 and everything to get there. So a lot of different takes there. What do you think of WWE and how they've adapted just as a company in general with COVID-19? I think the early adaptations were, I wouldn't say late to the game, but the fact that they had the Performance Center, they had a physical location they could go to and do those things. Florida was where a lot of their talent was based. They did have the COVID outbreaks. We don't know how many people are still dealing with those issues now, but every major sports league has them. Mm-hmm. I know some people don't like this when I say this. I do think some people in AEW probably got some exposure, if not got COVID, and you're not seeing them on television. I'm not reporting on anything. I don't have any sources on that. I don't think that's a wrong speculation to make. You and I know people that have gotten COVID.
I had it.
You had it. Okay.
I had it.
So talking about your experience, like when you got it, you work for an internet company. It's not something where you have to tell everyone you work with, and it may even be something where you're still at home working all the time. So you were already you already had a pandemic work lifestyle scenario to begin with, working from home.
I've been working from home for 5 years. My wife had it, I got it, and it was awful. And I still worked through most of it because I could. My wife, couldn't, so it was kind of jumping back between taking care of the baby and working. It is. I would say though, with WWE adapting to the COVID world or whatever, it's done so in a way that's much better than entertainment like movies and a lot of television shows.
Because they're tied to theaters,
Exactly.
like with WWE, I think it's a product of habits and routine, and almost seasonal routines too. It's not seasonal in the sense of like, oh, it's season 1, season 2 of a TV show. That's why they love saying we're the longest episodic running. Technically, they have seasons, but like really, that's only for legal advertising purposes, so they can change the rate at the end of a season. But no, like this is a company that will find a way to put on a show. They will find a way to do it and 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 do it. And some people are critical of them, but you still have millions of people watching their shows every single week, even though it definitely seems like less. Do you think they got burned by it? And we're seeing the financial kind of burden kind of come in. The live events aren't there. The crowds aren't there. The ratings have kind of come down. There is a casual fan, I think, that watches a show and says, it doesn't feel the same without a crowd. It's the number one thing we see people bring up. It's something I've seen people bring up about AEW. AEW is doing at least 500,000 less than when they debuted with in October, November time. And some people would say they'd be a much bigger show if they had a live audience.
I think since the no audience shows, it's been weird for me because as I guess a more casual watcher, there's just so much wrestling to watch I can't keep up constantly.
Sure.
Even though I host a wrestling podcast, whatever. But I think one of the things that WWE did extremely well, which I wish they would do again, was the Randy Orton Edge greatest wrestling match of all time ever, whatever.
You loved it. I was a big fan of it. I thought it was really cool.
Pumping those crowd sounds. I loved it. I don't care if it's fake.
It was awkward at first.
Yeah.
And there were some times where the audio because that's a challenging thing to do audio wise, because that was a pre-taped match. Most of what WWE does is not live now. It's pre-taped, so they can edit around things and stuff like that too. But we're starting to see the major sports leagues come back. I wonder what impact that'll have on the Wednesday night ratings too. People are paying attention. NBA and NHL will have games on Wednesday next week. So seeing how they're doing it, I was watching an NHL game. I was watching our Blackhawks take on the Blues, and they chimed in a ton of video game sound, and they filled in the seats with just, they covered the seats. You couldn't see empty seats. They brought they brought their screen down a little bit, so that's kind of dead center when you see them at center ice. And the NBA put an LED like screen all the way around the court on like almost a closed set. I do think there's some things that WWE and AEW could learn from how that presentation is being done. Now, in this financial, it's being noted that WWE is investing more money in producing content, even though most of the content they're producing is in the performance center. But it could be said that that production money could also be spent on safety of the production, testing, different things like that. The first number we heard when W said they're going to start doing mandatory testing every time people come in, that meant you were doing hundreds and hundreds of tests for every individual taping. And they were doing big bulk tapings, but you're trying to keep the rosters kind of separate and everything like that. So I'm just happy they're spending more money on and if you're going to spend more money on anything right now, it should be safety and the protocol of it. And wrestling in itself is inherently unsafe to begin with. So the fact that WWE had some COVID cases, I think the response has been adaptive, to say the least. If you're going to keep doing shows, keep doing it. But the move comes amongst some speculation this week that WWE is going to try and do something different with SummerSlam. We talked about this. This was a big topic for our viewers and listeners, is the idea of WWE kind of getting outside and doing something quote unquote wacky, according to WWE chairman Vince McMahon, with the presentation of SummerSlam. All right. And the talk of them potentially taking the show outside of the performance center. I'm all for this if you can do it safely and you can do it in the right place where it feels like a bigger deal. The speculation is maybe it could be on a boat, maybe it could be on a beach, this is a perfect time, end of the summer, do a Bash at the Beach show. I don't care where it goes, but if they can do it and it's safe and aesthetically it just feels out of this world or out of the natural wrestling world, and it can still feel big time, like a Bash at the Beach did. When WCW did those shows in the 90s, they looked different. It felt different.
Go back to the Mall of America, man. Let's go to the Mall of America.
Go to the mall, dude. Let it breathe.
No one's at the mall. Let's go.
And so it's not clear how soon WWE will announce this. We are 3 weeks out from SummerSlam. I almost said WrestleMania. And if they're going to do it, I think we're going to know in the next week or so. Because then that can be a part of the selling point of, hey, if you dropped off from the network, get the network. We're doing something cool with SummerSlam. Because you and I saw this. WrestleMania this year had a lot of novel appeal to it, in the sense of that was the first real big show they did with no fans present. Now they have fans, they have the hockey boards, have done adaptive things, there's more testing, and now the pattern has gotten in. It just doesn't feel the same, right? So I mean, they throw this show in the Grand Canyon, they do something nuts. What do you think? What's the craziest thing you think they can do in terms of presenting the show?
Let's just remember that Dustin Rhodes WCW match that took place in the back of a trailer.
Yes, it was the first uncensored. If you want to look it up,
first uncensored. That's what it was. Thank you.
That match is. I think Dustin got suspended for that match because they got color or blood in it. They weren't supposed to get color or blood in a match where they're fighting in a chicken wire cage in the back of a truck.
Well, it's moving down the highway.
Yeah, if you see the match, it's insanely unsafe. Awesome. I remember watching it as a kid and just being like, this is awesome. In retrospect, it's not a particularly great match in terms of actual.
It's two guys trying to stand up on the back of a truck, just not fall over.
Oh God, it's so unsafe. It's so unsafe.
This is the time to pull out all the stops. We've already seen Money in the Bank. That Money in the Bank race to the roof was.
Are you in the minority with me where you enjoyed it?
I loved it.
You want wacky races, SummerSlam stuff? Because some people think WWE doing something outside of the Performance Center, like they did at Money in the Bank. They lean on the comedy elements to just kind of because it's so absurd. My thing is, I think the cool wrestling matches outside, which lends itself to the idea of them maybe having a select amount of fans at it too. That's a whole other show. I'm okay with. If you're gonna go outside and it's gonna feel goofy, be goofy for a little bit, but treat the main event as a main event. Like you do with Edge and Orton.
You can't, when it comes to the wackiness, and as much as I love wacky stuff and crazy stuff, you can't have a whole pay-per-view of just like, all right, it's Judy Bagwell on a pole in a shark cage. You can't do that. You could do, I'd say 25% at most before it becomes like overwhelming to the audience and just kind of annoying at that point.
I don't mind the open suggestions coming in here. Saul Sultan, big fan of the show, says, who remembers the WCW junkyard match? Yes, WCW did do a match inside of a real junkyard where several wrestlers were severely injured in the match, including Fit Finlay, who got cut by like a broken sink or something like that. It was like a kitchen sink. And it was like such a deep wound that he didn't wrestle for a long time after that. And he was like really, really hurt. And it wasn't clear who won.
We were the winners.
We were the winners.
We won. Yeah.
We the fans are the winners in that situation. You know who wins the Wednesday Night Wars, man? You know who wins the rest?
We do.
We win.
Fans.
We win. The fans win. That's a cop out, right? Other people saying talking about this crazy shows outside. Yes, the Talking Shop of Mania this Saturday is going to be filmed in Luke Gallows' backyard. And it's worth noting that he, in our interview, and I know he probably noted this with you guys as well, that they did testing and they did health screenings. His wife, who's a nurse, did health screenings in the driveway. When people drove up to his house, they got their temperature taken and their pulse taken, all these different things. Kevin Durgan said cage match over shark infested waters. You want to do a real summer? You want to jump the shark? Jump the shark cage match. I want to see that. Jump the shark cage match. I'm on board. I'm on board with a jump the shark.
Is this also going to have Paul Ellering in another shark cage above them? Let's put shark cages and shark cages and shark cages.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. He gets thrown out. The referee throws him out, and his cage just drops into the water.
I think we killed Paul Ellering. Oh no!
What do we do? Oh, this is so ridiculous. This is just so
This is what I
ridiculous.
want in wrestling. I want the weird, memorable things. The stuff that I love about wrestling is like the silly things I grew up watching. You know, like Chucky challenging Rick Steiner to a match, like things like that. Like I love weird things like
Classic. You want something I can read about and just be like, they did this thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's what you want. I think SummerSlam has potential for that though too. My crazy one is doing something like in the desert, just with the mountains in the background or something like that.
Yeah,
Like
why not?
embrace the fact that no one's there, like, but have some fans or something, like not no one's there, but like, all right, we're doing this in the middle of nowhere or something like that would be really, really fun. People saying Mak Khattak says the SummerSlam should be held at the White House. They should do it at the White House. I don't know about that.
I'm sure Vince would love that.
The great Vince McMahon. The great Vince McMahon. I'm going to wave to you through the window. Just through the window. Just through the window.
They should do it in front of the giant fence they have built in front of the White House right now. Just do it in the middle of the street.
People are like, wow, there's a real big crowd for SummerSlam this year. No, that's protests. Those are protests. People are protesting. They're protesting this. Yes. That would be really bad. I'm going to avoid all of the landmines of social issues. I could have dipped in there. People said they could do a show in space. People also noting no matter they could do a show in space, outer space.
We've jumped the shark to like 90s horror movies like franchise at this point, like WrestleMania in space.
I'm telling you, man, you know, the last great territory. They always say that Vince bought up all the territories, right? You know,
by the moon.
Didn't get the moon. Did not. You know what's still packing them out? NWA the Moon.
Ooh, I'm there.
That was an inside joke. I remember some indie wrestling guys would always bring up, and they would be like, "Who's wrestling on NWA the Moon this week?" And it was just something I would. It was back. I can't remember who brought that up.
It's Nick Aldis and the Blue Meanie.
Yeah, he's all around. He's more than a world's champion. He's much more. He's an out of this world champion. All that ridiculous stuff. So definitely some fun things this weekend to look at and follow, and continue to hit us up at WrestleZone.com or on all the socials with the ridiculous places that you would want to see SummerSlam be put on. I'm all for it. Ray Durazo is hitting us up on YouTube. If you guys are watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit us up in the comments below. He says, a wrestling island? UFC has done this. They presented their Fight Island. The thing is, I thought that was a little bit of a bait and switch what UFC did with their Fight Island, which is in Dubai.
I didn't actually watch any of it. I just watched the announcement from Dana White and then John Oliver making fun of it. Or not even making fun of it, but giving him UFSEAC.
So they did the Fight Island, which is in Dubai, and it is a stadium. And they put out pictures on social media of the octagon, their famous octagon. It is their physical symbol, right? Mm-hmm. And it was on a beach. It looked like, oh, they're gonna have like fights on a beach. That looks kind of neat, right?
Okay, awesome.
But then they were indoors in an arena nearby, like on the resort.
No, so you can't do that.
Yeah, and that did feel like, because you saw really cool pictures of it, and I was just like, oh, you could build a rig around it and put it outside. But I could also understand we're just having it outside might not feel the same, you know? No. And I do think there's a possibility of, WWE doing something different here. Maybe they're in an arena with nobody there. I think at this point you can do shows in an arena with nobody there, and it won't feel as freaky as it would have if you eventually started doing that. Other people saying, someone saying they should do SummerSlam in front of Mount Rushmore. What Trump did a rally in front of Mount Rushmore, didn't he, recently?
I'm sure.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
I wouldn't mind seeing like a national monument behind like WrestleMania or SummerSlam. Just like they're outdoors and like, here's the Washington Monument right in the back. We're doing it in that
the National Mall.
Do
it on the National Mall. Yeah, I'm all for that, man.
Let's do it. Let's get weird.
GCW. Game Changer Wrestling up in the Northeast. They did a show. I don't want to say Coney Island, but they did it like on a boardwalk. I think in New Jersey. I think that's a good potential area. In an empty amusement park or something like that would be kind of fun. Embrace the weird. And it isn't clear how much of SummerSlam will actually be presented outside, if at all. But it does look like something could be outside. Maybe something on a boat. Maybe someone's trying to body slam Yokozuna like they did back in 1994.
It's Lex Express Part 2, apparently.
Yes, it's a boat this time.
Get on the bus, get to the boat, slam Yokozuna.
It's a race. It's like a Mad World. I was presenting this.
Yokozuna, who R.I.P. by the way.
R.I.P. R.I.P. Big Yoko. Bonsai forever, baby. Bonsai forever. But a bunch of ridiculous fun stuff here. So you brought up all the wacky, weird things out there. We're gonna get a bunch of that with Talking Shop-A-Mania. You brought up RoboCop and Chucky. They're
doing the Boner Yard match, which is
what is a Boner Yard? Give me a rundown of this. What do you think of Boner Yard?
Like 15 minutes. 15. I think it's just them period. I can't speak today. Making fun of doing a parody. There we go. Mm-hmm. Doing a parody of the Boneyard match. That's all it is. Mm-hmm. So it's just going to be them just goofing around and just Tex Chad Too Bad and Sex Ferguson beating each other up in the backyard.
And I do like those characters quite a bit.
Yes.
Like them these like archetype characters of 80s wrestlers from the territory days, talking about getting the rats and dick pills and like if I don't get paid in an envelope, I don't accept it.
In a shiny like jacket that has just one letter on the front.
The Ribera satin jacket. Oh. The Ribera that you got on one of your Japanese tours. Oh man, dude! If you're a hardcore wrestling fan, if you watch wrestling for more than 10 years, you need to seek out Sex Ferguson on. I don't know if it's the Kevin Steen show. No, it's Wake Up and Die, which is a show they did with one half of the Dominoes, Duke Domino, I think it was.
Yeah,
and it was on High Spots TV. This is just, even if it's just the highlights of it, he is in character playing a deranged Southern wrestler. Telling all these insane stories. And you did see a little bit with Southpaw Regional Wrestling, but it was very much a PG-13 version of it. They called it Tex Ferguson. They didn't call him Sex Ferguson. But now, definitely, this show is not going to be PG-13.
It is rated R, they said.
It is a rated R show. The highlight of it, they had some random indie guy in the ring, and I think they had him cutting a promo just so they could talk about how big his junk looked and his gear. Literally, I got that impression from 15 seconds of footage. Freight Train is on the show. If you don't know who Freight Train is, he is an adorable, wonderful man. I've gotten to meet him once. A very, very large man who's been featured on these $5 wrestling shows. Mm-hmm. You and I know Marty DeRosa a little bit. $5 Wrestling was a purposely bad wrestling promotion. And this show is, you're not watching this for 5-star classics. You're watching this for a goof. It will also feature, and we reported on this at WrestleZone.com, a socially distant battle royal. I don't know how that is presented. I do know that that a couple of people from WWE will be on the show. Mike and Maria Kanellis do make an appearance, I believe, on the show as well. So definitely some names you should be aware of. David Penzer from the old WCW days is going to be the ring announcer. So it looks like it's gonna be a really fun show.
It's $15, man.
And it's $15. And that my next thing was I was going to say this isn't like a $50 purchase. You know,
no,
we're not going anywhere on a Saturday. Come on, you eat at who eats at a patio outside on a Saturday night? You do that Saturday afternoon, and then you go home. All right, and throw back the cold ones. Put on your Ribera jacket and have at it with Talking Shop-A-Mania.
Which Ribera jacket? I've got 6.
I got 6 Ribera jackets. I got to pick which one I'm going to wear here.
Oh, boy.
Oh, man. I've wanted a Ribera jacket for a while as a wrestling fan. I just want one just because it just looks like cool. Other people texting, Southpaw was okay. I wish they kept going. Well, those were just designed to be like jokey things. They've done 2 of them.
They did 2 seasons, yeah.
They did film another one. And I know they filmed it and they put out a trailer for it like earlier this year, well before the pandemic. And there was talk of it maybe coming out in the summer. I could understand why it isn't, because if you're doing that, definitely Tex Ferguson, who was a big part of the first 2 seasons, was a part of it. Now you're talking about doing stuff with a guy who isn't really in the company anymore. I can see that show being completely canceled, unfortunately.
Big Bartholomew, too. Rusev's gone.
Gone. Big Bartholomew. Dude, we were big fans. I was big fans of Southpaw Regional Wrestling. I rewatched that.
I loved it.
What was your favorite Southpaw character? Who's your favorite one?
I liked Bandana Dan. It was just Daniel Bryan and American flag. Yeah, what was the French guy he was after? the French guy he was taking on, which was him.
I think he only did like one bit. He didn't. There was a couple guys who got. If you don't know what Southpaw Regional Wrestling was, it was all promos, no wrestling, and it was WWE guys playing jokes. They were just playing joke characters. Rusev was Big Bartholomew, which was like a redneck character, and Lana came in and was his cousin that they alluded that they were dating, which was very, very very much like them making fun of rednecks. Clint Bobsky, Chris Jericho, when he was still in WWE. Chris Jericho said that he flew out just to film this. He flew out. He was not working with WWE, I believe, at the time, or maybe it was like just about to sign a deal, but flew out just to film bits for this. That's how much he wanted to do this. John Cena had a big prominent role as he would always be the cutback anchor guy back in the studio, and always talking about how he used to be a broadcaster for 6 weeks in Utica, New York.
Chet Chetterson or something?
Chet Chetterson. And Fandango. I think Fandango was a big part of why they got to do the show, because it was him just goofing around with having this like fold over wig, and and he looked awful, and he would be on air and he would just be talking to his girlfriend. He'd be on television trying to get his girlfriend to call him back, and it was just they you could tell they were having so much fun with it, which I think is something why people like AEW. They like being the elite, which is all bits. It's all just people goofing. I wish it was a show that you got to see a little bit more of on the network. Like if that was on the network, I would not put that in the free tier. I'd be like, no, you got to pay for that one.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to be in the room with the boys on the ribbon. You gotta get that stuff there. So tell me more about Wrestling Buddies. Wrestle Buddies, not Wrestling Buddies.
Not Wrestling Buddies.
Don't want to get sued. Not Wrestling Buddies. Every Thursday, you guys just dropped a new episode. Obviously, Gallows and Anderson on it. But for someone who hasn't heard it, maybe listen to WrestleZone. What's the general ethos? You said just you embrace the funner side of everything, not just
we didn't
the new show of arguing about ratings like I have to every week.
We didn't want to do anything that was a weekly recap of wrestling, because there are
there's enough of that. I'm doing 4 or 5 shows a week, so people know I'm going to talk about what you saw the night before. I'm going to talk about the news of the day and different things like that. I understand that, but yeah, especially if you're only doing a weekly show.
Yeah, so the whole idea is we're just talking about things that myself and my co-host Chris Hayner were both over at GameSpot, things that we just love in wrestling. We've mentioned RoboCop. We talked about Mordecai one week and why that was a thing. We just we talk about silly, goofy stuff, but we also want to make it accessible to wrestling fans and people have no idea what's going on in wrestling. So we kind of explain sports entertainment or wrestling to people as well. This week's episode was the most serious one as I'm editing, and I'm like, there's nothing funny really going on. It's just a good interview. And then next week's episode is going to be very good. It's called After Dark, and it's going to be about sexy wrestlers.
Sexy wrestlers.
I think I'm picking all men to talk about, like Rick Rude. I just want to talk about Rick Rude. Rick Rude.
Dude,
Prince Iakea.
Dude, Prince Iakea was a hot one.
The artist?
But no, Rick Rude was a hot one. And also, he had a gross sexuality. Because for the time, it was still very much, we were still like saying homophobic things in pop culture was more than accepted, if not encouraged. Like you were watching PG movies and they were dropping homophobic slurs in PG movies in the 80s, and it was casual. It was casual. The Ventures in Babysitting has that, where 2 kids are yelling at each other, homophobic slurs. You want to talk about that? So Rick Rude comes in at the time, and he's a flip of the script of all the men want to be with me. You know that all the women want to be with me, all the men want to be, and the hip swivel and so like. Good. It was fun. It was fun in retro, especially that's one of those 80s things that I think ages really well. In that way, like it ages pretty well.
I do want to point out GameSpot, not GameStop. That always happens.
How many times have I made that mistake in this show? At least 3
since we've known each other at least 70.
Okay, at least 70 times. All right. Once again, Scott Elfring is with me here today.
This would be Scott Elfring.
Yeah, it's like I keep messing up your show. I'm sorry. That's an awful thing. How used to you guys to that? Like, how annoying is that? People just
it's every day. Yeah. Like somebody will I'll say I just did like an interview over at GameSpot. Go check it out. They're like, oh, cool. Like, do you guys have like the new Call of Duty in? Like, yeah, sure, we got it in. Right.
Just to catch stuff. See, I told you about this. So GameSpot running for a very long time. You guys are one of the first big breakout video game websites out there. And obviously wrestling fans always have an interest in the annual video game releases. And you guys covered this quite a bit.
I
WWE
usually go to
and
the 2K events actually. So I was
yeah,
like,
so and there was a lot of changes this year at 2K because the 2K20 game did, it had some real problems with development and it had a cool look. There were some fun things they tried with it aesthetically, but you got to have the fundamentals of that game. How big of a blow do you think that was to WWE? Because the video game offering every year is the big thing where casual fans check that out.
yes.
And I have younger fans that come to WrestleZone every single year to find out what's going on with the game, and it is a big thing that brings in people right before WrestleMania time, right at the end of the year, and you see if the game is great. Sometimes you see a bump in the ratings too. I think you coordinate with that.
I mean, but they had to, and this is something that was widely reported, and it's something that we knew when we went to the 2K event in August in Las Vegas, I believe it was, that Visual Concepts, the team that was working on the game, was it Ukes had dropped off, and Visual Concepts had to recode everything within a very, very small time period, and they got it done, but there was a lot of bugs. And to me, I'm like, guys should have pushed back the game a year. Like, it looks great, and I could see why it would be amazing, but just push it back a year. But
and they got stuck in the pattern of every October, November we put out
exactly. And I mean, there's the Battlegrounds game coming out too, which is a huge departure. I think it looks fun, but I know there's a lot of people out there that want more of a simulation type game.
Do you think this is the right game to put out now? A game that isn't a simulation game, a game that is a over-the-top, fun, really cartoony in terms of its look and feel, and you have what, Roman Reigns throwing John Cena into it? No, the Rock throwing John Cena into like a gator's mouth. Yeah. Daniel Bryan jumping out of a helicopter, and it looks like a fun game. Wrestling is just there while you have these characters doing these wild, over-the-top, almost GTA type things. But it doesn't look as serious as a GTA.
No, it's what I'd say with that is, like, if you remember, I mean, we were the same age. We grew up in the arcades with like WWF Superstars and WrestleFest. And do you remember, like, when you saw WrestleMania, the arcade game came out?
Yes.
How excited you were for it, and how it was nothing like you wanted it to be. Yeah. But all in all, I think that game is fantastic. It's just completely different from what we're used to. And I think that's gonna be the same thing with I hope that's the same thing with Battlegrounds,
where it's the non-simulation game. It's very much we're going to be as ridiculous as you can, just for
exactly
fun.
Yeah.
I do think there's some fun in that too. But how much pressure do you think is going to be on the 2K game next year? There's gonna be a lot of pressure on this game to kind of make up for a lost year, and it's a huge community of people that love playing games. I think that's a game that has nearly as much attention on it sometimes as Madden does, in terms of what they do with it and how they change it. The online leagues, the creator wrestler, all those different things. And so I do think that was a huge blow for WWE, and that's a pre-pandemic thing. That was
I think they'll come back from it. I don't think it'll be a huge problem in the end. We'll all forget about the issues with 2K20 when 2K2022 comes out.
Definitely.
I mean, yeah.
Is there any huge games just in general in gaming right now, covering over at GameSpot? Blood to the brain. Is there anything big in gaming right now? Obviously, people have a lot more time on their hands. What's the big story you think that maybe has come out in the pandemic with gaming that people maybe didn't notice before? Maybe something different about gaming that is adjusting to the way people are playing games. We have new platforms, we have new consoles coming out this year.
I mean, there's the PS5 and the Xbox One X series. I do want to know, I'm on the entertainment side of things. I'm one of the guys that runs entertainment. I'm not on games as much, but I do live on my Switch. I think most people are in the same boat as I am. So I'm just playing the Paper Mario. I was on Animal Crossing, then I got super bored of it. I think like the Switch has become everybody's best friend during the pandemic.
Nintendo has really cut a lot of corners in terms of like Xbox and PlayStation, Microsoft and Sony really feeling like we don't have to just make a game, we have to make an entertainment center, we have to make these high performance visual elements, and they have to be these, and the games have to match that and all these different things. Whereas Nintendo is like, what is the ease of gaming? What is the ease of having a device and different things like that? And I've always noticed the different perspectives, and Nintendo sometimes always ends up winning that race, so I'm always intrigued by that. Thank you so much for the time, man. If people want to follow you on the Twitter machine, where do they go?
I'm I'm Matt Elfring. That's IM, then MATELFRING, and that's where I'm. Or we're at Wrestle Buddies on the Twitter as well.
And he works for GameSpot, not GameStop, at your local mini mall. So
I'm a district manager at your local GameStop.
the funny thing is, you still work at a GameStop. You work for GameSpot. One day it's Spot, one day it's Stop.
Whatever. I work for both. It's fun.
It's wordplay and dumb. People asking, "Am I a gamer?" No, I can barely get this computer to work. I don't know if I'd be a part of that. People bringing up WrestleFest being the best arcade game. When I've been to a beercade, that's awesome. That's awesome.
That's my game, man.
Definitely talking about that. I'm rooting for Xavier Woods, who's currently injured from WWE, in his online campaign to get on the newly soon-to-be relaunched gaming channel G4. I assume that was a big story for you guys this weekend coming out of Comic-Con.
Yeah, he's always been. I know Xavier decently well. He's always been. He's wanted to get back on Nick Arcade for a long while. When the G4 announcement came out,
it was a fun.
He's the perfect host for that. And he's the perfect host for any game show. Up, Up, Down, Down's a fantastic. I want to plug Up, Down, Down. The great channel. I love them. I put
it on in the background. I've just had it on in the background, and I'll just have it on while I'm doing work or setting up a show, or put it on after doing the post work of a podcast or something like that. I've always enjoyed it. And the one pilot he had on the WWE a year ago about him just doing a beercade kind of game show.
When WWE did a bunch of pilots, and then they all died.
And I was like, why don't you put this on the network? This is so much fun. Yeah. And have it be a contest where you can come and be at the show. It's such a simple idea. It doesn't take that much logistics to put together. Yeah. But that's a whole other story. That's a whole other podcast. All right. Thank you for doing this. I'm sorry about keeping you on long. And of course, referencing to your website by the wrong name for 45 minutes.
Yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Matt, you're a great friend in comedy and everything outside of this weird world of internet media. So I always appreciate your stuff. Good luck to you and the wife with COVID. I didn't even know about that.
So that was back in May. We're good.
You rolled that son of a bitch up and got him for 3.
All
right. Yeah. Gone, baby. Gone. Just wait, dude. When I get that vaccine news, boy, I'm gonna get sick in a whole other way. All right, it's gonna be a lot of fun stuff.
He's gonna be drinking vaccines. Just
how many vaccine shots are there gonna be at a bar? Everyone's they're gonna have those vaccine liquor shots.
Oh God. I can't imagine going back to a bar. I'm never going back to a bar.
There's gonna be so many vaccine. There's gonna be so many vaccine-themed candies and products and crap like that. There's gonna be a wrestler who's gonna call himself the vaccine. That's gonna happen.
It's gonna be me or Marty DeRosa is gonna do that. One of the two of us.
Marty will have a big vaccine thing on the front inner thigh of his tights. On that note, I will return Monday night after Raw. Keep your eye on the podcast feed. Tomorrow night we will drop an episode of 2 Dynamite Dudes with Attitudes, exclusively covering AEW. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Remember, when watching wrestling, enjoy wrestling. Oh, also one more plug I got to do before I just did the sign up. This weekend you catch me on air on 101 WKQX. We're streaming Lollapalooza. The biggest rock concert in the world is now on the internet in classic form and new footage. We have it at 101WKQX.com. Lollapalooza can't happen live, but it's happening on the internet this weekend. 101WKQX.com. Oh yeah, enjoy